Hello, welcome to Research Methodology. I'm Dr. Alex Clark, and I'm here to be your advisor for this via YouTube. It's a fun time, isn't it? Right then. So let's see, what do we have? First of all, SASC. What are we for? We are not proofreaders. We are here to we don't check the content. That's got to be done by your supervisors. But we all check everything else. And we do. And we will provide comments. Usually, as we're currently doing it all via distance learning, it'll be through SASC at kingston.ac.uk or the module on Canvas. The module on Canvas is the best system because everyone and the full extended team, not just the regular team of SASC advisors, but the extra people who are helping us out in this current time, all have access to that module. So that's a really good system for getting things checked. The rest is dependent on us checking our email. And as much as I would always love to pretend that we academics sit there constantly glued to our emails, waiting for messages to come in, we don't. No one does. We have other work we're getting on with, and then we go back and check. So, honestly, the Canvas system, which sends a beep, is probably going to get the quickest response. 5 days of the week. Saturday and Sunday, not included. Keywords to remember when writing: content, 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 and content. All the rest is also relevant too, but content. Methods. Now, if you're ever in the fortunate position to end up in the full academic skills lecture I can give for about 2.5 hours if needs be, this is section 4. And to make sure there's commonality between it and that full lecture, I have literally used the slides from that lecture. Now, the research process says, develop a rational set of aims and our hypotheses. Okay, so first of all, you come with a hypothesis you are going to test, or the question you're going to answer. And then you set up the aim. Your aims are to prove that hypothesis or disprove that hypothesis if it's someone else's and you don't like them. And then you'll have to come with objectives and a methodology to achieve those objectives, which will allow you to answer that question. There's all sorts of lovely academic gump here, but basically it means the research process is this. You come up with something that you want to prove or disprove. You then look at it and divide it up into smaller chunks, which are individually achievable to achieve the larger aim. They're your objectives. So, aim, test hypothesis. Objectives, how you go about testing that hypothesis. Methodology, how you go about doing those objectives. That's how it filters down. That's so lovely. Seriously, it's a lovely presentation. The slides are wonderful. I cannot claim credit for all of them. How can the hypothesis be tested? Now, this is the critical thing. What are the key variables that need to be testing? These are questions you have to ask yourself, and especially are true of the context of the time you're in. At the moment, we're all working distance. Those of us who can are not going into work. Those of us who can are working from home. You might not be allowed lab time. So in other words, doing work which requires you to be spending time in the lab is probably not a good idea because you're probably not going to have access to the lab to do it. In which case, you need to have a topic which allows you to use a proper research methodology which doesn't involve lab work. And we're going into those. Research strategies. Now, I've got case studies. They're my favorite, personally. Speaking as a historian who teaches academic skills and history of engineering, case studies are very, very useful, especially for students who are of a scientific engineering computing background, because it's a very good, you can focus in and develop a really in-depth knowledge on something. You'll need about 3 or 4 if you're doing it properly with case studies for a dissertation or for an essay, but the level of depth you're going to be doing is going to be different. Experiments, lab work. Literature studies. Now, if you are doing a case study, you'll often do a literature study to go with it. As you can see, I'm environmentally friendly. I reuse my own glass bottles. So the literature study, which is critical, is even more and even larger than a literature review. A literature review is a requirement of every dissertation, no matter what methodology you do. A literature study is when you take your literature review and you pretty much increase its size by about 50%. So let's say if you were doing a dissertation which was 12,000 or 15, between, let's say, 12,000 words to 15,000 words long, you would be looking at roughly 2,400 to words in a sort of, in a 12,000 word dissertation, it's 2,400 words I'd be looking at really roughly for a literature review. And in a 15,000 word dissertation, I'd be looking at roughly 3,000 words is what I'd be expecting in terms of the quality of literature. If you are doing something which is a literature study, then we'll be looking for 3,600 words roughly in 12,000 word work. And in a 15,000 word one, easily 4,000, probably 4,500. Okay. They're big. They're in depth. Surveys. Question is, there's this thing called SurveyMonkey, which will protect your data and other people's data. There are other providers like it, but I use SurveyMonkey as the example because I have real worries when students turn around and go, oh, we're going to share a Google Doc or we're going to share an Excel spreadsheet for people to fill in survey data online, because that gives away your own information and gives away the other people's information to everyone else. This is bad, ethically bad practice because it's data protection issues. So if you can use a system which protects your identity and other people's identity, the people filling in filling it in's identity, that is a good idea. Interviews are even better. But interviews, again, are something you need to be careful. You need to make sure you have a standardized question set for them that you can ask. You can ask follow-up questions, which will be different, but you need to have a basic standardized question set so it can be the same for everyone. These are all things you can discuss with your supervisor or with a SASC advisor. Both groups will be happily chat them through with you. Evaluating your research. You have to tell us why you chose the methodology you did. You do. And this is the reason why, because all research methodologies have a limitation. They do. You know, the limitation in labs, how much money you have, how much testing can you do, how many different types can you do, how big a team do you have available to do this sort of testing, how many different computer sensors do you have, or whatever you're doing, different machinery available. These are all limitations. With surveys, well, if you put out a questionnaire, and even if you do link it out on social media and all sorts of Facebook groups, etc., which are connected with the field or whatever you're doing, it's self-selecting who fills it in. It's only going to be people who are interested in the topic who are likely to fill it in, unless you can get the boss of a multinational to make all their people fill it in. If you can do that, that's always good. But the reality is, it's only going to be the people who are interested in filling it, so that's going to be self-selecting. Same with interviews. It's only going to be people who are actually nice and friendly, who tend to agree to an interview with a student, and who have the time. You have to acknowledge these problems. They aren't problems as long as you acknowledge them. And found that was helpful. That's some methodologies and some research techniques. Right. Got a few more of these to record. Oh, 10 minutes.